Yusef Salam knows the cost of a coerced confession. It cost him part of his life he can't get back.
Our lives were just beginning, and just like that, our lives were almost over.
This week's op-ed in the New York Times was a painful flashback in time for the men known as the Exonerated Five, first convicted in the Central Park jogger rape case, then exonerated after the oldest of them, Corey Wise, had spent 12 years behind bars, blasting deceptive and mentally brutal interrogations as teenagers that led to false confessions of guilt despite a lack of evidence. All of the exonerated have thrown their support behind a bill sponsored in Albany by State Senator Zelnor Myrie that would outlaw deceptive interrogation techniques in New York State.
Most people are shocked that you cannot lie to the government on your taxes. You cannot lie to the government when you are in their custody, but it is perfectly legal for the government to lie to you if you're being interrogated and you've been accused of committing a crime.
State Senator Myrie's bill would make it illegal for law enforcement officials to lie to individuals accused of crimes during interrogations and would prevent any evidence coming from those interrogations from being entered into evidence.
The sad truth is confessions are successful many times in convincing jurors of the guilt of the individual. But little times do we actually contemplate what the source of that confession was.
One would think that obtaining a voluntary confession should be a straightforward process. Police by law cannot use physical force, the so-called third degree. But Rebecca Brown of the Innocence Project says they can legally use deception as part of their psychological toolkit.
So they can, for instance, tell somebody, we have a bloody fingerprint from the crime scene and it matches to you. Even if that's false, even if that's a false fact, in order to really sort of encourage that confession. Now, these sorts of techniques, guilt presumptive techniques, work on the guilty, but they also work on the innocent.
In fact, the Supreme Court has allowed that law enforcement can lie to a defendant and say their compatriot confessed when the persons had not confessed. They can even claim they have DNA evidence, even if no such evidence exists. Deception loaded on top of duress that in the Central Park jogger case cost Salam and his 4 co-defendants years in prison before another man confessed to the actual crime.
Being put in an impossible situation where you're told the only way you can get out of this is by telling us something.
In the case of the 5, the youngest among them were 14 years old. Their 13-year fight for justice chronicled in Ava DuVernay's Netflix series When They See Us. Now they fight for those with similar stories that never make it to the big screen, much less public attention.
Because on the side of cop cars, we know that it says to protect and serve. New York City, it says courtesy, professionalism, and respect on top of protect and serve. Imagine if we had cops that were all of that mindset. Protect and serve the public.
Craig Treadway, Pix 11 News.